At our table now is David Horowitz. He is the author of this new book, The Anti-Chomsky Reader. I should say the editor, along with his colleague Peter Collier. Good morning.
Good morning.
But I want to take our viewers to your blog that you do, which is on www.frontpagemag.com. And what is that?
Well, it's more than a blog. Frontpagemag.com is it's a magazine devoted to the war at home and abroad. We have a tremendous amount of content, but we're focused on these issues. And in our view, the war at home is even more important. This is a test of wills between us and the terrorists, and we have a very large segment of the American population whose locus is the Democratic Party, which has been against this war from the beginning and has sabotaged the efforts to consolidate the peace in Iraq, and will not rest until America leaves and the terrorists are triumphant. And Noam Chomsky, of course, whom we've just done this long overdue book about, is an intellectual leader of this anti-American movement. And Front Page, I think we're certainly responsible for the coinage of the term the Hate America Left. A lot of people are reluctant to acknowledge how virulent the anti-Americanism is within our own country. And we've taken a kind of leadership role in pointing that out.
Let me give our viewers just a little idea of how you have made that argument in your blog at this, on this website. You say it's cardinal mistake to presume this ferocious, near psychotic hate is all about George Bush. Every individual has personality traits that can become irritating given the right surrounding circumstances. So his famous smirk can seem smug, his humor callous, his religious faith threateningly intolerant for those who dislike him for other reasons, which is precisely the point. Jimmy Carter's faith, or Jesse Jackson's for that matter, never caused Democrats the slightest concern. That's because they are leftists who share the Democrats' now dominant antagonism to American purpose. For that is what the Bush bashing is really about, the Democrats' hatred of the war on terror. All the boilerplate baloney of the Democratic Convention, the military salutes, the bravado about winning the war on terror was so much smoke in the eyes designed to cover up this basic fact.
Yeah, it's quite amazing how not just anti-American leftists, but liberals and people who are actually somewhat liberal foam at the mouth at the mention of Jerry Falwell or Pat Robertson, two perfectly law-abiding, decent citizens, but they're, very comfortable with Islamo fundamentalists who are terrorists and who will incinerate thousands of people. I don't think I've ever seen in my lifetime the kind of psychotic hatred of an opponent that is being manifested by the left. The idea that Clinton was the same is ridiculous. Just the number of books alone about Bush's alleged lies. What was a bigger lie than the Democratic Party convention, pretending to be, militaristic? I mean, it was like just one long tribute to the militaries, whose budget the Democrats have, fought to contract and cut, along with intelligence, for 30 years now. Nobody who's been half awake over the last 30 years could believe anything that they saw at the Democratic Party convention, if you want to talk about lies. And of course, Bush has been vindicated on the main charges brought by the left, in particular the famous 16 words in the State of the Union address about the Niger uranium deal. There actually was an attempt by Saddam Hussein to buy fissionable uranium, and that blows apart every other Democrat leftist canard about the Bush administration. If Saddam Hussein was seeking uranium to make nuclear weapons, then he was a threat, and we needed to take him out.
What would you say to a woman who called maybe 5 minutes ago on the open phone segment, who said that this administration would cause something to happen, meaning a terrorist incident in order to win the election.
First of all, who in his right mind would have bet on 9/12/2001 that we wouldn't have another terrorist attack in this country for 3 years? There isn't a single soul in America, and that's because we all understand we have no borders. The terrorists are here. So the only reason there hasn't been a terrorist attack is because George Bush and Dick Cheney and Donald Rumsfeld have taken the battle to the enemy camp and kept them off balance. Secondly, this lady's argument would be an argument for opposing Hitler. Oh my gosh, if you stand up to Hitler, he might do something bad. Of course, there are going to be casualties in a war. People do not, are unable to accept that we're in a war. We are in a war, and that means there are going to be casualties. And the question is, can we take them out before they do horrendous things? This war has been going on now for more than a decade. The Clinton administration did nothing. The World Trade Center was blown up in 1993. It was our embassies were blown up. The Clinton administration did absolutely nothing, and the result was 9/11. Bill Clinton's legacy is 9/11, and it's mind-boggling to me why Republicans will not say this, but that's the reality. The Clinton administration was paralyzed in fighting the war on terror by its liberal and leftist superstitions. We shouldn't have extra scrutiny of Muslim males coming from terrorist countries. It was one of them. Every one of these terrorists, was went on a visa, or maybe 15 of the 19, something like that. That's why we got 9/11.
How's your, if I can change it a little bit, how is your organization that you set up on college campuses going?
I have 135 organizations which are trying to, the left has used our campuses, and by the left I'm talking about the faculty and the administrations, to indoctrinate students in leftist ideology. I am trying to restore educational values. This is also going on in our secondary schools, and I'm launching a K-12 movement this year. It's called Students for Academic Freedom, and it has a website of studentsforacademicfreedom.org, and this is kind of a way of, if we're talking about the war on terror and the indoctrination of college students, we need to talk about Noam Chomsky, who is, and this book that Peter and I have done is long overdue.
Why do you call it long overdue?
Well, Chomsky has been spreading his poisons for about 40 years, actually, and this is the first book that takes on Chomsky's act, as it were. Noam Chomsky is the most influential intellectual in the academic world. I believe
you say there's a cult out there. You call
it is well, of course, it's a cult. He's promoted by Rage Against the Machine and Pearl Jam play his incredibly boring speeches at their rock concerts. He was celebrated in the film Good Will Hunting, which I have to say was one of the most dreadful films I have ever been in a theater to witness. I don't say this because of its politics. It was just dreadful. But in the middle of that, the genius, I think it's played by Matt Damon, who is a neighbor of Chomsky's and a Chomskyite, refers to him as a genius. He is more cited than anybody in human history. He's, I think, the 7th most cited author in academic life after Plato and Freud. He has a reputation as a linguist. He has a theory of linguistics, which we deal with in the book. What you have to understand about Noam Chomsky is that he is a colossal, compulsive, certifiable liar. That Mary McCarthy once said, he is actually the intellectual is Michael Moore. Mary McCarthy once said of Lillian Hellman that everything she wrote was a lie, including the words, and then the. And the same could be said of Chomsky. Not only, I mean, one of the more amusing episodes and jaw-dropping episodes in this book that Peter Collier and I have edited, and which is available at frontpagemag.com or Amazon, of course, is a New Yorker piece appeared it was April 2003. And it was a profile of Chomsky. And in it, the author described a class that Chomsky taught at MIT, where he, as is normal for Chomsky, said, tried to portray the United States as worse than Nazi Germany, and said that the British and the Americans had supported Nazi troops who were attacking the Russians and thereby helped the Holocaust to happen. That was the implications of his statement. And of course, there's absolutely no such, this never happened. And the writer of this piece in our book wrote to Chomsky and pointed out that there's just no evidence. He asked Chomsky first what his source was. Chomsky gave him the source, and the source said nothing of the kind. So Chomsky's response was that the New Yorker made up, he never said that, and the New Yorker writer made it all up. It was a total fabrication, which is a common Chomsky phrase. So John Williamson, who wrote the piece in our book, The Anti-Chomsky Reader, called up Larissa McFarquhar, who was the New Yorker writer, and said, Chomsky says it's a fabrication. And she said, well, actually, it's on tape. MIT taped the class, and you can get the tape. And he got the tape, and everything that she had said, every word was there. So, and this is not the only case in this. Chomsky also, right after 9/11, when the United States went to war with the Taliban, claimed to an audience of 2,000 at MIT, and it was a C-SPAN speech, he said the United States is planning, or here's what he said. He said, it looks like the United States is planning a silent genocide of about 3 to 4 million people in Afghanistan. And the claim was that we were going to starve them. There was already a famine in the waiting, and the United States was going to bomb the supply trucks and starve 3 to 4 million Afghan citizens. The facts were, even when Chomsky said that, the United States had undertaken a massive special food supply to the Afghan people. And whereas people were going to starve before 9/11, just because conditions were so bad in Afghanistan, the United States, in the midst of a war, airlifted and got in $300 million worth of food and prevented any starvation from taking place. This did not stop Chomsky. Chomsky went to Pakistan and India in the midst of the war in Afghanistan. Now, Pakistan, of course, is a Muslim country. And on the front pages of those papers, you could see the American professor denouncing America as the greatest terrorist state in the world, and claiming that the Americans were planning the genocide of 3 to 4 million Afghans. After the war was over, after nobody had starved, because the Americans had sent in food, Chomsky was asked by a British leftist paper, The Independent, about what he had said. I mean, what do you think now about the genocide you predicted? And Chomsky said that's a complete fabrication. Now it's on C-SPAN, what he said. This is all in our book, The Anti-Chomsky Reader, which is just out and should be in the hands of every college student that has to encounter a Chomsky argument.
Ithaca, New York, your first stop with David Horowitz.
Hi. I find it sort of difficult to respond to guys like you because you're fundamentalist in nature, and the fundamentalists that are the chief cause of all the problems of the world, and you're amongst them because you're rabidly against everybody, and like a fundamentalist, you jump around. You jump around from person that you're going to rip up and topic that you're going to